Good morning. Welcome to your Saturday morning, early morning intuitive guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, America's let's try that again. Kick-ass coach and psychologist. It's been a long night. We're supposed to be getting freezing rain and they're predicting power outages, and that doesn't make me happy. So I was a little bit restless with my sleep last night. Welcome, Joe. Glad you're here. Looks like we have one other person already here. And you totally missed my tongue twister that I blew a few seconds earlier. But if you want to laugh, watch the replay because it's kind of humorous. Hello, Cindy. Glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. Good morning to everyone. And we have a lovely card today from The Power of Surrender deck by Judith Orloff. And yes, my flip screen is working. Excuse me. So that's off to a good start. And I think this is a wonderful card and is going to smooth the way for a whole lot of improved relations with others. Surrender your need to always be right. Surrender your need to always be right. So I'm going to read the card first, and then a couple of stray thoughts popped into my head that could be of use with regard to this topic. So if you want to take some breaths, just settling in, just opening up your mind, body, spirit, to receiving whatever part of this message is intended for you, designed to help you be living a more satisfying life. So here are the words. Give others the gift of letting them be right. Be yielding, not rigid. This will help resolve conflicts and improve your relationships. And some of you, those of us who tend toward the perfectionistic and there must be a right answer and a wrong answer and everybody must get it that this is the right answer, are probably going to have a hard time with this card and the words I'm going to say, but I'm going to say them anyway. So, one of the things that I think is helpful to consider with regard to this is how often when you explain to someone so diligently that their opinion is wrong, how often do they change their opinion? Pretty darn rarely. So, as my grandmother would say, save your breath to cool your soup. You can do I disagree or I have a different opinion about that and just leave it sit, see if there's any invitation to share that. Likelihood is there won't be. But you can still feel like, okay, I'm not complicit with whatever it is. But again, the indigenous people up here, I learned this from one of the tribal elders up here, most of whom are Anishinaabe. He said one of the ways that Native people learned to respond to that, here it is, here's the right answer, blah, 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 was, you could be right. You could be right. They're not saying, yes, you are right. They're just, you could be right, and letting it go. Because again, how often when you bang your head against that wall, does that wall actually yield? How often do you end up with a bloody forehead? So perhaps in the interest of saving the headache, it's worthwhile just to, you could be right, or I have a different opinion, would you like to hear it? And I'm amazed at the number of people who will actually very directly reply, no, that they don't want to hear your opinion, which again, to me, is a very clear sign it's not worth your time and effort to waste your breath putting it out there. There are those people who do agree with you, and there is value in hearing out someone who disagrees with you. Perhaps in some cases you aren't right, and it is useful to get the feedback. Oh, I hadn't considered that, or that piece I hadn't thought about. That makes sense to me. Whatever. But it's letting go of our ego trip about I must be right. Because we know as human beings we aren't always right. We make mistakes. We screw things up. We have opinions that are later proven to be inaccurate. That's the nature of being human. And the more we can roll with that this is just the nature of being human, the better. So I'm taking a mediumship class, and one of the first things she said was, you have to be willing to be wrong. You have to be willing to be wrong. And then she shared with us one of the circumstances recently where she was wrong. And that was like a breath of fresh air, very freeing. Just that acceptance that as a human being, we're going to be wrong. We just are. The statement in there about be yielding, not rigid. To me, the yielding part is about flexibility. It's about being willing to roll with things and to accept what is. That doesn't mean you're okay with it. Good morning, Cheryl. Glad you're here. That doesn't mean you're okay with it. It means you're acknowledging this is what is right now. And if I don't like it, I can take a look at what do I have for options to impact this. Good morning, Pat. What do I have for options to impact this? We can rail against what is, expending our precious energy on whining and pissing and moaning, or we can say, this is what it is, acknowledging the reality of it, and then deciding, do I have any recourse, and do I choose to exercise that recourse? Oftentimes, like with things on a national scale, we may not have a whole lot that we can do with that. We can do our individual things with it, but on the grand scheme of things, we may have very little influence. Maintain our individual influence, do with it what we can, and then let it go. Let it go. We can only do what we can do. And again, to rail against what is just hemorrhages our precious energy. Okay, so this is what it is. If I don't like it, if it isn't as I think it would be good for it to be, I can exercise my free will. I can do what I can do. I can also look at it with a discerning eye and decide, this, as my friend Sue would say, this is not a ditch I'm willing to die in. This is not a battle I'm willing to take on. Whether it's because you already sense that the other party is not willing to budge, or because you realize the scope of what you have to exercise with regard to influencing that circumstance. And again, so I haven't gotten around to posting it on my platforms yet, but I took a chunk out of the last moon ceremony that we did on Tuesday night because it really came through me from Spirit that we are supposed to be focusing on peace right now. Lamenting how terrible things are right now in Ukraine is not helpful. Focusing on peace and fostering the things that will create peace and sending resources to foster peace is a much better approach than lamenting war. Mother Teresa knew that, right? When she said, if you have an anti-war rally, don't invite me. If you have a pro-peace rally, I'll be there. She got it. She knew the point of all of this. It's focus on what you do want. So I will be posting that audio on various platforms so you can listen. Basically, the gist of it is Spirit called me to call in the energy of the great peacemakers that have lived over time. Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., etc., 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 and call in their energy and feel it for ourselves. Align our energy with that peacemaking energy. See what that does for things. I think it will make a huge difference, especially the more of us that do it. We have groups of people who are doing a ton of good work in this regard, and let's join them. Let's join them. Let's put forth peaceful efforts as opposed to war efforts. So going back to our card, surrender your need to always be right. I'd like you to practice that today and view it as a gift. Give others the gift of letting them be right. Even if you know that what they're being right about is going to take them on a mini hayride through hell, allow it to be. If you've offered, I have an opinion about that, would you like to hear it? And they're pretty clear that they do not want to hear it, allow them to take the hayride through hell. There must be something on that hayride for them to glean that's going to be useful. So I'm going to read you my little one that I have posted, because sometimes, having gone around the sun 60 times, I have a little bit of wisdom, right? And especially with my daughter, there's times when she just needs to bang her head on something in order to learn. So what I wrote down was, I choose to release all anticipatory maneuvering that interferes with my or others' soul's evolution. And so it is. The idea being that if I say to someone, my daughter, whoever, I have a perspective on that, would you like to hear it? And she says no, that is my clear sign from above that she needs to take that journey. She needs to go on that little hayride through hell, learn whatever it is she's meant to learn, and move on. And who knows what manner of knowledge that's going to provide support for her later on. Sometimes we learn things at one point that aren't applicable until later. So, and I've had some recent things for myself like that, where some pieces fell into place of the life puzzle, and I went, okay, I don't quite know what I'm going to do with that, but somewhere down the line it will be of value. It will make sense. It will serve its purpose. Just kind of like collecting the pieces of the puzzle. Some are upside down, some are on the floor, whatever. Getting them all in order here. They aren't all yet into the puzzle, but that's okay. I'm gathering the pieces, collecting them together, and when it's time to fit them together, they'll fit. They'll fit. So, surrender your need to always be right. Give others the gift of letting them be right. Be yielding, not rigid. This will help resolve conflict and improve your relationships. And I've had several opportunities where someone has come back to me and said, well, aren't you going to say I told you so? No, I'm not. First of all, I hate it when someone does that to me. And second of all, you obviously needed to take that journey, or you wouldn't have gone. You needed to take that journey for some reason, even if it was that mini hayride through hell. I'm not going to be the person who says I told you so. That's just not helpful. So I'd like you to think about a circumstance today, an opportunity today, someone whose path you will likely cross today, where you can practice this. Step into that magnanimous sort of a place where you just allow people to be where they're at. You love them where they're at, warts and all, as my friend Deb says, and allow them to learn their own life lessons. You don't have to be the teacher all the time. Let them learn. Let them figure it out for themselves. It's going to sink a whole lot more deeply if they've learned it themselves than if we've tried to impart our wisdom on them. Again, that doesn't mean that you don't offer your opinion, but if it's rejected, if it's held at bay, let it be. Let it be. That is your mission for today. Have an awesome day. We'll see you again tomorrow. Send me some prayers that this ice storm really isn't all that big a hairy deal. I really need the power to stay on. All right. See you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.